Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this planet, and welcome to our SETI Live. My name is Frank Marchis. I'm a senior astronomer at the SETI Institute and the chief scientific officer at Unistellar. So today we are going to have a very interesting SETI Live on citizen science, where we are going to talk about shadow hunters and what they do, and specifically shadow hunters for a country called New Zealand that you probably know, which is located in the Pacific. And for this, we invited two New Zealander-based people, citizen astronomers. Let me introduce them. So first of all, on my screen here, I have Michael Camilleri. Hello, Michael. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing well, thank you.
Where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from Auckland, New Zealand, so that's the largest city towards the north.
Okay. And on the other window, we have Gareth Davies. Hello, Gareth. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm calling you from a place called Whangarei, which is in the north of the North Island, and I'm here attending the Royal Astronomical Society of New Zealand's annual conference. So I've broken out and come here to speak to you.
Thank you very much for making the time. So yes, we are going to talk about a very interesting campaign, the two interesting campaigns you did in New Zealand. And for that, I prepared a few slides. And maybe we should first introduce and explain, if Jasmine want to show us the first slide, what's an occultation exactly? So on this movie here, sorry, we are doing multi-windowing on one screen on this side of the world. You probably see this line on the planet Earth. So maybe Michael, can you explain what is an occultation, if you inclined?
It's rather incredible, actually. So an occultation is when something goes in front of a star and it blocks the light. Um, for this one, we're talking about asteroid occultations. So that's an asteroid, possibly in the asteroid belt, possibly a near-Earth asteroid. It's usually one in the asteroid belt. Anything can do an occultation. It could be a minor planet. It could be a comet. And an eclipse is a solar eclipse is a form of occultation where the moon occults the sun. So what happens is, by chance, I suppose, a very small asteroid, maybe 10, 20, 30 kilometers across, happens to be in exactly the right position to go in front of a star, and it casts a shadow across the Earth. And what you're seeing on those red lines are the track of the shadow across the Earth. Now, because the star is so far away, the size of the shadow is almost exactly the same size as the size of the asteroid. So for the observations we did, they were about 20 kilometers across. So the task is to try and catch a shadow that's about 20 kilometers across, that's zipping across the Earth's surface at maybe 30 to 50,000 kilometers per hour, with a position that is not known accurately. So it is basically a shot in the dark.
Exactly. It's an extremely challenging type of observation. But the reason we do this is because with this kind of occultation events, we can measure the size, the position, and the shape of the asteroid. And that's what we're going to show today. So, Gareth, you are part of this network. Maybe you can tell us a few words about this network and how it was built.
Well, it's amazing, actually, Frank, that I like to think maybe I'm a good example of a citizen scientist, insofar as it's all rather new to me. And using the eVscope has opened up this incredible world. My wife, who is actually the vice president of the Royal Astronomical Society, has been telling me for a long time, Gareth, you must get involved in citizen science. And I was sort of shaking my head. And then we got the eVscope and a whole new world opened up. And then Michael contacted me. I started up a group. Michael contacted me and I realized this man knows a lot about science. And he persuaded me to get involved in an occultation. I thought, okay, I'm going to do it. And I live in a Bottle 6 environment in the center of Auckland. It's so bright there, you wouldn't believe it. And then we do this occultation, and incredibly, I'm right bang in the center, and the chances of it happening were just, so unlikely. And Michael kindly left his home and went into some dark place in the distance in Auckland. And so I was so enthused that then I started to get the group, writing to them individually, telling them, come on, you must get involved in this. And we all went off to the Waikato, which is an area south of Auckland. And we went across the line. It was just amazing. It was a real team effort. It was so much fun, really.
Thank you. We're going to go back to that. But before, let me say hello to our viewers. We have people watching us from Cheyenne in Wyoming, from Tallahassee, Florida, Iowa, Northern Ohio, Liverpool, UK, from Glasgow, Scotland, from Croatia, from Austin, Texas, at the IEEE Sensors Council, from Amman in Jordan. So welcome. We are talking about how citizen science can help measuring the size and the position of asteroids using a technique called occultation. So let me show one more slide where we can see what it truly is an occultation. Jasmine. So as you can see on this slide here, so this is for the occultation of an asteroid called Tuchkova, which is in the main belt. And we have here, maybe Michael, you can describe what we're observing here, what we see on this map here.
So that's the North Island of New Zealand. The distance, the center line where it's marked Gareth, it's a bit small on my screen, sorry. That goes over Auckland. That showed the predicted central path for this asteroid. The lower line, which is towards the bottom of the North Island, the distance there would be about 450 kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the lower limit of the central band. The upper limit goes higher, 450 kilometers to the north, actually off the screen. So there's probably about an 800, 900 kilometer band where this was predicted to likely to be. It could still go outside of that. And it's a 20 kilometer object and about an 800 or 900 kilometer wide possible path. So we got really, really, really lucky on this one.
Yes.
By all rights, we should have just seen absolutely nothing. So obviously this is a big thrill for us. So this is high stakes, high excitement astronomy.
Yeah. So to clarify, if you could have been anywhere between this line and another line that we can see here, and maybe not see anything because the shadow of the asteroid is quite small compared to the uncertainty on the position of the asteroid and star.
I'm just thinking the size of the asteroid would be maybe slightly smaller than a single lowercase letter on that picture.
Yes, the size of this, roughly.
Yeah.
So people ask often, what do you see when you observe an occultation? So let me show you. It's not extremely fascinating. So here we have two animations built from the data you collect with the eVscopes. So you see the occulted star. And what you're going to see, if you look at both together, almost, you're going to see them being occulted, disappearing for a few seconds. Boom. And here. So this is basically an occultation as observed using the Unistellar eVscope. You can observe occultation using other telescopes, of course, but here the point is that it's quite a simple way to do this kind of occultation. And then we have, this was in April, and you did another one in May 26, 2022, and not 2002. I'm sorry for the typo here. So maybe tell, so one who organized this, how did you grow the network? How did you go from two people from the northern part of New Zealand to now 6 of you?
It was basically, Frank, we started up the eVscopes group very early on. And for a long time, all we were doing was sending each other pictures and going, wow, look at this amazing image. And then Michael joined, and he sort of turbocharged citizen science. He was forever popping up with ideas on what to do. And so, you know, he convinced me to do it. And when that first one Tuchkova happened, I thought, oh, that's just the way it is. You know, this is every time it happens. And then somebody explained to me it's not like this. So then Michael decided, you know, we should go and spot Lindelof down in the Waikato. And I contacted the people. Michael contacted the people. I wrote them enthusiastic emails telling them how important this was and how great and what great fun it was. And we got all these people down there to join, and then we jumped in different cars, convoy down there. I took my wife and set her up at Hamilton Observatory with one of the enthusiasts there. eVscope before in her life, and we set her up there. And Michael was, we were calling each other up. There's fog on the river, it's clear here. There's a diversion. The motorway's closed. It was such tremendous fun.
So go ahead.
I'll just add to that a little bit. So the group was a Facebook group. So it's a Facebook group Gareth set up. So as many Facebooks are, you share images and this kind of stuff, and often nothing happens. I think Gareth here was the real catalyst. I was perhaps the trigger, and the first observation we had was a trigger, and then Gareth's involvement with the group. Also, you put out a call through the Auckland Astronomical Society and the Hamilton Astronomical Society. The local astronomy shop did some promotion on the eVscope and mentioned the page. And I also reached out to Paul Delber, the lead occultation astronomer at Unistellar, because he's on the Slack channel. And I just said, hey, it'd be great if we get some more eVscopes. Could you send an email around to the registered owners? Because we see them on the network map, but we know that a lot of them aren't in the group, to promote the occultation and encourage them to join the group. So from me just saying, hey Gareth, how about we try and get some more people to actually having, I think the group grew from 13 to 18 or 19 users, something like that. Yeah. In the space of a couple of weeks, and that was as a result of the collective promotion there. So some of them were in the Waikato, so could join in. Some of them are not, and some of them are now starting to do some citizen science activity. So it was really that social and that promotion that really got it going. It is a team effort. I think citizen science works better as a team, encouraging each other, sharing knowledge. So that was what managed to make this successful. Now, if someone actually wants to pop up the Unistellar network map and look at New Zealand, you'll see there are actually not many eVscopes there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for this observation, we possibly had half of the number of total registered eVscopes in New Zealand.
But
that's good. Go ahead.
Michael did an outreach. We had a Zoom meeting, and he explained it, and he did such a Rolls-Royce job. He even went outside and he showed us how it would work outside. It was really inspiring, and people who were lost, only through Paul sending out that message to everybody, that really got people contacting us, wanting to join the group. And I think we've got a real momentum now. And the most important thing for me, anyway, was how straightforward and if not simple, but it's very straightforward. And for the fact that that Nalini could do it, that's my wife. She could just do it for the very first time. Is just amazing.
Yeah, that's the reason we basically designed these telescopes. It's really for everybody to be able to do meaningful science. That's the main point. So I'm glad to hear that it does work. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I think one of the important things is Nalini, it was the first time she'd actually used an eVscope.
Oh.
And for 4 out of 6 observers, it was the first time they had attempted to do a citizen science observation. So this was really high stakes. It's like they've never done it before. The chances of success, but all of them actually managed to technically do the observation correctly. We lost 2 of them because cloud rolled in late in the piece. But that's the barrier that the eVscope can break down, is to overcome these technical hurdles. I've looked at what it takes to actually do a decent occultation observation with my other telescope, and you need all kinds of bits of equipment, and you need software and all kinds of stuff, and it's a real barrier. There is another barrier which I think is very important to mention, and I think as a group we were very successful in overcoming this one, and that's the learning curve to getting to the point where you can use the eVscope to do a citizen science observation. So there are instructions and videos on Unistellar. My comment about them is that it's a little bit hard to find the right piece of information. There's 4 different versions because each citizen science observation has its own instructions. They are very similar, but they're still different instructions. And then you've got to look up the observational thing. So first time you do it, you have to sort of figure out what you're doing. And this is what we, as a group, we overcame with the Zoom call. So I sent out information beforehand. I put a single, very simple one-page checklist to outline the process. And then in the Zoom call, we went through the entire process and showed them what they needed to do. So that, I think, really helped people, because the last thing you want to do on your first observation is be going to this web page or this web page, or look up this document, or which link do I click on, and this kind of stuff, which is what I had to do the first time, the first few times I did citizen science observations. So that, I think, is a key learning from this experience. If we hadn't done that, then I think some people would have probably been reluctant to make the attempt, and we would have probably had some more failures. Rather than 0 failures, we would have probably had some failures to actually follow the procedure properly and hit the launch button at the right time. Because despite the fact that there's no big countdown or rocket blast, it's like you're watching that clock ticking down before you hit the launch, because you don't have to hit it exactly on the second, but it does put a considerable amount of pressure on the observation.
Mm-hmm.
Frank, it's like being at the start of a Formula One race, you know?
Yeah.
You're waiting out, you're just waiting, you're waiting, launch. It's fantastic.
Well, I'm glad you had fun with it. I have fun with occultation all the time. But in my case, I always have stories. Almost got arrested by cops, an animal come in the middle of the night, freaked me out, anything. So do you have any stories for this one? Anything happen?
I think what I wanted to say, Frank, before we go on to a story, it is sort of a story. I'm on the International Dark Sky Association's Dark Sky Places Committee, and we basically are the committee that approves these places around the planet that are dark sky sanctuaries, reserves, dark sky places. And I live in the brightest possible place, you know, it's in New Zealand, and I'm always tearing my hair out that I can't be in a dark sky place, and I can't use my scope, and I see things like the Tarantula Nebula as just a smudge when I look through an 8-inch daub. And suddenly, here I am on my balcony in the middle of this city, light polluted, and I get that amazing Tuchkova capture. I mean, you would not believe it. It's so contrary to these sort of dark sky places thing, the fact you got to go to somewhere remote, to see the sky. Suddenly, with it, I sound like I'm a disciple. I suppose I am. The eVscope has just transformed my life, as a consequence of all of this. So my story is, wow, I thought I had to be in a dark sky place to enjoy the sky properly. Now I can enjoy it from the center of the city. Amazing.
And you're lucky because you live in the southern hemisphere where the sky is the most beautiful. I used to live in Chile, and I do miss the southern hemisphere sky. I do miss seeing all these beautiful objects that we cannot see from the northern part. So I'm glad you're using your telescope for that as well, not only for science. So any stories? Go ahead, sorry.
No, I could tell you 1,000 stories about how wonderful it is, mainly linking up the people in the northern hemisphere to see the southern sky. So they're having their toast and coffee in England, and they're seeing the southern sky at night in all its glory. It's just incredible.
Yeah. Before we go through more questions, we have people watching us from Montreal, from Michigan as well. Welcome. We are talking about citizen science and how citizen science can contribute to astronomy and to the study of asteroids using occultation technique. Okay, so if you want to add something, I can go for my next questions, but let's see. No stories? I'm disappointed. I was expecting something.
I'll give the odd one. I think the Tuchkova event was, I think, my 4th citizen science observation. So I had to travel out to a place called Langholm. It's about a 40-minute drive. Very windy roads, very dark. It's just a small little community out on the Manukau Harbour. And as you'll know, anytime you're going remotely, you're never quite sure what you're going to get. And until you get there, if it's a new site. So for this observation, all the new observers we said observe from home because it's just going to be a lot easier. So this not particularly exciting, but you go there and you're never quite sure what the light source is going to be like and whatever. As it turned out, my spot was near a bend in a road. So as the cars come down, the lights shine across you. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning or 2:30 in the morning, something like that. So not many cars at all, but I pressed the button, and about 2 minutes into the observation, I can hear a car coming down the road. I can hear the street lights. I can see the lights of the car. I know these street lights are going to sweep across my telescope, you know, from the back, but you still don't want it to happen. And I was prepared for this. I had a picnic mat in the car. So I was there in the middle of the night, holding up this big screen and shuffling around the telescope as the car goes past. So that's probably the most routine of hazards. In New Zealand, we don't have bears or wolves or any large mammals. There's nothing that's going to eat you apart from basically mosquitoes or sandflies. So we don't have that kind of story. You know, we don't have the bear ate my telescope kind of stories in New Zealand. It's just not going to happen.
Well, I mean, I must come to New Zealand to observe then. Maybe I will finally have a night without a stressful situation. Okay, do you want to go dig into the science, because we get some interesting result from the observation? In fact, I can show you. So let's share these slides again. So this is the location during the Lindelof observation. But let's go back to the Tuchkova. I'm sorry, it's a bit technical, but I wanted people to understand really what we can do with these kind of observations. So those are the reports that you receive, and those are your reports, in fact, since you are the two observer of this one. People can probably don't read this. Let me just try to zoom on it. Yes, so you can read that this occultation lasted 1 second for Michael and 2.4 seconds for Gareth. So Gareth, you have a slightly longer occultation, probably because you were located you were observing an elongated object, and this elongated object, the shadow of this elongated object was basically longer in the direction of your observation. So when we have two cores like that, what we can do, and that's what my colleagues in Brazil, Bruno Morgado, has been doing with the observation, he basically fit these two codes, these two positive detection, knowing the location of the observer. We know basically where the shape of the shadow by fitting by an ellipse. So that's what he did here. And so now we have an estimate of the size of the asteroid, which is roughly 25 kilometers, plus or minus 2. And what really mattered to us as well in this case is that we also know now very precisely the location of Tuchkova. We have an estimate of the position of Tuchkova to the 2 kilometer accuracy. So it means that next time Tuchkova is occulting an object, we will have a much precise orbit of the asteroid. So we'll be able to reduce the size of this uncertainty and tell the people in New Zealand or elsewhere in the world where the shadow of Tuchkova will be observable, to be located at the exact location to see this occultation. So with that observations, we get the position of the asteroid precisely, and we get an estimate of its size and the shape in this case.
Yeah, so Frank, that next observation, I suppose the key point, and this is something we've kind of been discussing as a group, you know, what should our strategy be for each asteroid? The biggest value when you've got that really wide one is having the observation to have the position. So at the next observation, it's like plus or minus 2 kilometers, plus or minus 5. So instead of spreading ourselves out over like 85 kilometers, we could maybe spread ourselves out over 20 or 30 and get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 slices through that asteroid. And then that little diagram that you've got there, you'd have so many more slices, and Bruno would have a hell of a lot more work to do, but it'd also be a lot happier. So, you know, it's not necessarily even just a single observation. Like, this is a campaign that potentially could go on for years. The result that we get for this one, it's helped to refine the position. It's also helped to refine the shape. That enables the next set of observations to hopefully get a lot more information through that. And then that will enable the next piece of analysis to be done and gain more and more information. And I suppose same for that Lindelof one as well. We only got that one the next time round. That's going to be a much more accurate position.
Yes, because for this one, the surprise is not really a surprise. We see that very often for asteroids, even in the main belt, that's supposedly quite known. There is a shift. There was a shift of this one by almost 50 kilometers in the position. The central part was shifted by 50 kilometers. The occultation was 50 kilometers away to where we expected it to be. It does happen because we have a lot of asteroids to monitor. There is 1 million of them known so far. And some of them are not being observed for like months or years. So after a while, the orbit is not as known as when it was observed recently. So that's what we call propagation of error. So we start seeing a shift basically of the position of the asteroid. So for this one, we have now a much refined orbit. So again, we'll be able to refine the next occultation and hopefully get 5, 6, 7 chords. So we get a much better shape estimate of it. There is something new that we did. Go ahead. Sorry. I don't see you, so go ahead.
What I was going to say was that inspired by all of this and also the need for more people to be out there doing it, we've actually about to commence a plan to implement these citizen science projects in schools. And it's supported by Asteroids, which is part of Auckland Astronomical Society and brings in the telescopes. It's a charity, but we're looking now, and we're going to launch it at this RASNS conference. And so the school children will have scopes, and they will be able to get involved in this across the country. So it's something that's a really exciting development, I think, that's come out of all of this.
All right, thank you. That's wow, that's incredible. I mean, we created this telescope to bring astronomy to everybody. That was really the goal. And we have a program here in the US to bring the telescope in small community colleges with the Moore Foundation. So I'm glad that this is expanded to other places like New Zealand.
Yeah.
And if you want to invite me there one day, let me know.
It's just a matter of time, Frank, just a matter of time.
Okay, cool. So we're having some questions already. We have an easy one. We have a question from John Pickering that you all know. We all know John, right? Hi, John. Thanks for watching us. So John wants to know if there will be a name for the Auckland collaboration. Name is very important. You need to have a name and a logo, because if you don't have that, you don't exist in science. So
I think we must need to get a marketer onto the team for this one. I don't know that we have one.
Okay.
Oh, I can do that. I can do that. We'll come up with something. Tamaki Makaudo Occultation Group.
Okay. One question from the delicious plum. When individual of a community join a citizen science event observation, do they own telescopes which are internet enabled? Is their data share? Are they exploring the cosmos? Okay, so first of all, do you all have a telescope?
Yes, mine's.
Yeah. I've got two, Frank. I've got two.
You got two, yes. So yes, you need to have a telescope to do those occultations.
Yeah, sometimes you can hire telescopes. The local astronomical society here hires telescopes. Is there eVscope going to be available for hire, Gareth?
I think that's the plan. Yeah, Auckland Astronomical Society have got one. Hamilton Astronomical Society are planning. I think that as people know more about this, more societies in New Zealand are going to get them. I'm going to be demonstrating them tomorrow evening. And as soon as I demonstrated to Auckland Astronomical Society, Stardome, which is our largest observatory, they went out and bought one straight away. So I think seeing is believing with the eVscope.
Seeing is believing with the eVscope. Wow, this is a new catch line I'm going to keep. It's a good one. Thank you.
Frank, no charge. No charge.
Yeah, and we have a question about data sharing. So what happened here is that when you observe the telescope, the data on your telescope, and you send us to our network, so there is a lot of people in the back here that are representing Paul Dalba is just over there on the other side of the building, in fact, working with one of our students. He's the head of the occultation program. So we have a pipeline that processes automatically observations. You are all on Slack. We have a Slack channel that you can join, and you can see regularly when you do an observation and you send it to Slack, you can see the data being processed, and an animation, and then a report popping up. And when we have processed and analyzed the data, we have a partner at Charles University, like Joseph Durer or Joseph Hanouch. We basically submit this to NASA repository. So this way, these occultations will be used by professional astronomers in the future to refine the shape of an asteroid, to refine its orbit, etc. Sometimes we go back to data taken in the 80s. It happened to me for some of my papers, because we were really wanted to refine the orbit, the shape of an asteroid. And we use those data, historical data, because they are still valuable, because astronomy is astronomy. Hey, 20 years, 40 years is not that much compared to the age of the solar system. So an asteroid doesn't change in 40 years. So that's the reason we can use data when they are into these repositories.
Yeah, Frank, just the practicalities of the scope. The scope itself is not internet enabled, so it's not in the Internet of Things. It can't be natively remotely controlled through the internet. What you can do, the data is shared by uploading later. So this happens after the observation. It does take some considerable time to upload, so it's not a live upload. What I have done with using the eVscope when I was participated in a international Messier marathon was actually live broadcast from my phone while I am using the eVscope. And I think that's what you do, Gareth, when you are doing your outreach events where you've got people from overseas and friends from the UK and stuff going in. So as long as you've got a cell phone signal to your phone or your tablet, then you can share live what you're seeing on the screen. It would be great if it was fully remote, because then I wouldn't have had to pay my daughter $25 to operate an exoplanet transit observation while I was away for the evening. And it'd be nice to just be able to trigger things remotely. But I suppose that's something for the next generation of telescopes.
That's correct.
Frank, I would like to say also regarding John Pickering, who was just online, that he has been incredibly supportive as well. You know, he sends through information for the South Island. He's pulling together a South Island group. We are a very long island, you know. We don't have many people, 5 million people, but we have about the length of Britain. So he's looking after the people in the South Island. It's just that we in the North Island, not only do we have better weather, but at the moment we've got better sighting of asteroids. So, but John is definitely out there doing his thing for the South Island and linking up with the North Island as well on a regular basis. So it's a real good team effort here. Team New Zealand is a big thing in the world of sport. Now it's a big thing in the world of astronomy.
Very good. That's a very good way to conclude this conversation, in fact. So, well, we also have a very good team France, by the way, if you want to talk about soccer, but we will see that for the next World Cup, okay? For rugby, I think you're the best team, definitely. I'm giving you this, definitely.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much to both of you for your time, for participating to this SETI talk. Let's see each other again in person in the future, or maybe for another summary of what the New Zealand network has been doing in astronomy using the Unistellar telescope. So thank you again to both of you. And I would like to remind our viewers that we are the SETI Institute. The SETI Institute is a non-profit organization which aim to find for life in the universe, but we also do education and outreach program like this one. So you can support us by sharing this video on your social media, by commenting, giving us a thumb up, of course, if you like it, and but also by, if you're really inclined, by making a small donation at seti.org/donate. Any pence, any dime will be used to do science and to do outreach, of course. Next week, we have a special event, SETI Live, on the contribution of Franklin Antonio, who passed away. Franklin Antonio was a supporter of the Allen Telescope Array. So we're going to have a SETI Live dedicated to to his role in science, specifically with the search of extraterrestrial technological signal. And in my case, I'm going to be away for the next 3 weeks, traveling to the UK, but then to Namibia to see the southern hemisphere sky again. So with an eVscope. So I will send you some pictures to all of you, and of course, we will have the opportunity in the next few weeks to talk about what I did in Namibia with my colleagues at the Observatoire de Paris. So thanks again to both of you for your time. Go back to the conference, Gareth. I'm sure they're waiting for you over there. And thanks, Michael. Okay, bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.